there are 3 reasons that you would experience Podfade, and not one of them would be a happy scenario for you. But how serious is Podfade anyway? Listen in to find out.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
In this episode, we'll discuss what is Podfade, what are your chances or probabilities to experience Podfade, what are the risks associated with Podfade, the 3 reasons people end up in Podfade, and going to give you a plan of what exactly you can do to be able to avoid Podfade and make sure that your show survives. My name's Adam Adams. Welcome back to the podcast on podcasting. This is episode number 34, Pitfall number 9, How to Avoid Podfade. If you haven't heard the other pitfalls yet, they go all the way through episode 8, 10, 12, all the way to episode 50 are the top pitfalls, that you want to avoid. I believe it's 22 pitfalls. Don't quote me on that you want to avoid. It goes from episode 8, all the even numbers, all the way to episode 50 are the main pitfalls that you can go through. And today we're really just talking about Podfade. And I want to be able to help you to be able to avoid Podfade. So let's start by at least identifying how many times am I going to say Podfade in the same episode, right? Let's talk about what it is. Podfade means that you stop your podcast without notice. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't planned. You just run out of time or motivation, energy, or money, which forces you to quit your podcast. So that's what Podfade is. But what are your chances of experiencing this thing called Podfade? Roughly 75 to 90%. 75 to 90%. Now, am I just using round numbers? No. One case study showed that only 25% of podcasts published even one single episode last year. Even one episode last year. 25% of podcasts. Another case study showed that less than 10% of podcasts ever make it past 6 episodes. So, what can you do to avoid Podfade? Keep listening in. I'll share some key actionables that you can do to make sure that your show survives. What are the risks, though, of Podfade? What are the risks that could come to you? Well, there are 6 things that you probably will experience if you Podfade. Number 1, probably experience a little bit of embarrassment because you got all the show up, you told your friends, they watched you start it, they watched you get excited, and now you're not doing it anymore. You only have a couple of episodes and they're going to ask you, you'll feel a little bit embarrassed. You'll have to be accountable for that. The next one is you might feel some resentment toward yourself, maybe for making the decision in the first place, resentment for the money that you spent to somebody else to edit your podcast, the resentment that you might have to whomever it was that told you, you should start a podcast. And now you're resenting them and saying, I hate this person. Why did they tell me that I needed to start a podcast? They were wrong. And that embarrassment, that resentment does not feel good. Third, you could lose some confidence in yourself for like future decisions that you make. You might think twice and you might not be willing to jump out and do something like an entrepreneurial endeavor because you might not feel like you can withstand it. You might think, oh, I don't make good decisions. I'm not going to do it. Fourth, it's simply wasted time. There's no question about it. All of the time and effort that you did, you're going to feel like you wasted all of that time. Fifth, it's wasted money. No question about it. You spent money on your website. You spent money on your podcast logo. You spent money on your hosting platform. You spent money, or maybe you didn't just spend money. You're also losing out on money because You thought that you were going to make all this money. And so you let go of another endeavor that could have made you money. And that just wasted your potential of making money. And then sixth is that you wasted energy. You wasted resources and energy focusing on something for a certain amount of time, but then you just pod fade and quit. So I don't want you to go through embarrassment, resentment. I don't want you to lose confidence in your future decisions. Absolutely don't want you to waste any time or money or energy. So let's dive into the three main reasons for pod fade and how you can avoid it. So what are the three reasons other podcasters pod fade? A, overwhelm. B, too small of a listener base. C, general loss of interest. So within A, the overwhelm, too much work they feel. They have a lack of time, so they feel overwhelmed. They don't have the systems in place, so they feel overwhelmed. They don't have a team. They're wearing all the hats, so they feel overwhelmed. They're losing money on their podcast, in part because they probably didn't niche well enough. And on that topic of no real niche, they didn't spend enough time figuring out a niche that they were excited about. It's no longer fun for them. Now let's go back to B, when I said that they had too small of a listener base. Well, the reasons for that typically are that they lack a niche, and without a niche, no listeners know that it's right for them. So for example, you probably heard this said before. If not, you might have heard me say this before. If you're trying to speak to everybody, you're really speaking to nobody. If you don't have a small enough niche, you actually don't have any listeners because nobody really knows that it's for them. So lacking that niche can actually bring your listener base even smaller. And it's the weirdest thing. It's the strangest thing, because if you try to make it so everybody would want to listen, or you'll do a little bit for everybody out there, nobody wants to hear that. But the smaller the niche that you go, the better the results for your listener base. It's the strangest thing, but it actually works that way. Another reason why you might not have a good listener base under B is just bad quality. So you'll get bad quality either because of the equipment that you're using or the team that you're using for editing. And C, general loss of interest in having the podcast. In general, this can happen just because you didn't have a good enough niche that you were interested in, that you believed that you could do for the next 3 years. But also, you can start losing interest if you don't have A or B from above. For example, like if you're overwhelmed, you're going to lose interest. If you don't have enough time or money, or like you're losing money on the podcast, or you don't have a good enough niche, or if you have a small listener base, you're going to lose interest. You're going to lose interest fast. So what can you do to avoid pitfall? Well, here's part of the plan. Here's what you can do to make sure that you avoid these pitfalls and you have a podcast that actually lasts. There's 11 things that you can do. Number 11 is you need a niche down as soon as you can. Plan for it at least 3 years. At least plan to do this podcast for 3 years in a row. Niche down and pick something that you're going to be excited about for that period of time. That's number 11. Number 10 is you need to record more episodes than you publish. Record more than you publish. So for example, if you're doing a weekly podcast, which is 4.33333 episodes per month, that's if you figure out the 52 weeks divided by 12, it's 4.333. If you record more than you publish, what you want to do, because you know that you need to be able to publish 4.3 every month if you're a weekly podcast, then here's what you need to do. You can either record on one day, maybe try to record like 7 episodes once a month. Now, if you're recording 7-ish episodes one time a month on any day that you want, Tuesday or Saturday, or you pick the day. If you do that, then you'll have those 4.3 and you'll have the additional 3.6 or 2.6, which means that you'll have a bank account of episodes in the can. So if you ever get sick or need to go on vacation or forget to record or get really, really busy and can't record, there's no chance of you not having something in the bank that you can use. Just like when you are in your finances, everybody tells you you need to have, let's say, 6 months of expenses or 3 months expenses at a minimum in the bank, in your savings account, so that you can withstand a storm. Some people even say 12 months expenses. With your podcast, it's very similar. You want to have a bank account of these episodes. And so the best way to do that is to record more than you publish. You can either do, I'm just going to use that weekly podcast as the example today, because most people can do a weekly. I do a lot more, and I know people that do a lot more than me. And I know people that try to do every other week. You're not going to get the success with an every other week podcast. 100%, you're not going to get the success. And if you do it every other week podcast, you're probably going to have Podfade no matter what. So, with that said, record more than you publish. I already told you 7 once a month. Another idea would be to have every single week, like on a Wednesday, for example, you might try to record 2 episodes every single Wednesday. Now, if you're trying to record 2 episodes every single Wednesday, sometimes it's going to be canceled, mostly because your guest forgets about it. I can help you figure out how to do that part better. But anyway, the point is that if you try to do like 2 episodes every single Wednesday, the chances are you'd probably be able to record somewhere around 5 to 7 episodes each month. And that could be a little bit easier on you if doing like 7 in a row was just too stressful for you, just to give you an example. Number 9 is that you need to have an actual microphone. So if you don't want to experience Podfade, you want to be able to make sure that you're having listeners. So what I'm saying is you want to have a good enough sound quality that would attract a listener. You don't want a listener to be put off by your podcast. So you want to make sure that number 9, you have an actual mic, something that you spent a little bit of money on. And if you need to find a mic and you don't know where to look, I've got several different mics that I've already vetted that start at around $20 per mic all the way up to $500 per mic. So, and anything in between. And I've vetted each and every single one of them. And you can find it on growyourshow.com/PDF. And that allows you to be able to download the PDF or just to be able to click on there and it'll give you direct links. So it shows you not only the mic, but it also gives you a direct link to be able to purchase that mic. So if you want to buy a $69 mic, it's there. A $20 mic, it's there. A $100 mic, whatever your budget is. The one that I'm using now is $250. And I also have a $500 one on there that I vetted and I like it a lot, but it's going to be a little bit higher expense. You have to have an actual mic or you're not going to have anybody listening. Number 8, you need to launch strong in the first 8 weeks. More on that on episode 36. So this is episode 34. And so just a couple episodes from now, you'll be able to figure out like how can you actually launch strong in the first 8 weeks. So I'll give you the entire plan in episode 36. Suffice it to say, number 8, you need to launch strong. And if you do launch strong, you're likely to be able to get into a noteworthy, which means you'll have more listener base. It will support you a lot if you have a strong launch. If you don't have a strong launch, then you're going to be swimming upstream and it's going to be more time, more effort in order to get the same result. That's why I always love it when somebody comes to me to work with my team and they haven't even launched yet. They're like, oh yeah, I want to launch. I want to work with you, Adam, but I don't even have a podcast yet. I say, even better. It's even easier for us to be able to get great results swimming downstream because we can really utilize the algorithms in those first 8 weeks. Now, if you've already got a podcast, don't worry. We still guarantee results. I can still help you, but it's always so much easier when you can use that launch plan in the first 8 weeks. More on that in episode 36. Number 7, begin with the end in mind. You've got to have a vision of where you're going. You have to have an idea of what you want to achieve. And this is one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, right? From Stephen Covey. Begin with the end in mind. If you do that, it'll support you to be able to not pod fade, because a lot of people, they don't really know where they're going. They're kind of loosey goosey. They're kind of playing around. And in a way, it's like they're dabbling. Dabblers get crushed. So for you, as you're trying to grow this podcast, if you can have a clear vision, an understanding of where you're going, what you want to achieve, that of itself, regardless of your numbers, regardless of all of these other things, just having that clear vision of where you want to go, what you want to achieve, can keep you excited about the podcast. Number 6, you need to have a plan. You need to have a pre-launch plan, a launch plan. You need to know how many episodes you're doing, etc. But you got to have a plan. And if you have a plan, you've got that vision, and then you have the plan that helps you execute that vision. So that's number 6. Number 5 is not to tie your success to a number. If you tie your success to a number, you might be disappointed. And many people, they think that, if you build it, they will automatically come, or they might think that having a podcast automatically makes you famous. Well, if you tie all of your success to that number, if you say, I want this to happen, or I want to be exactly like this guy or this girl who has had a podcast, they're my idol, I want to be like them. And you tie your success to those numbers, it could be a challenge for you to continue with your podcast if you're not measuring up to that. So if you can find a different thing to tie your success to than just a number, then it's going to support you to be able to stay in this for a longer period of time. Number 4 is set your systems up early. Set your systems up. Have your team that's going to be editing, set up all of your systems. Like, this is what I'm going to do with how to get people on the show. This is what I'm going to do on how to publish the show. These are my systems to promote the show, etc. If you can set up your systems early, then you're never going to feel that pressure, that weight on your shoulders that kind of makes it feel uncomfortable to even have a podcast. It's those systems that make such a big difference. Number 3 is hire a team. Get a team in place where you don't have to do all the work. You don't have to wear all the hats. You'll be too stressed out if you're doing this alone. I can almost guarantee you that. I've seen a couple of happy people that do this on their own, or seemingly happy people, but I really still feel like if you've got somebody on your team, a virtual assistant, working with us, working with another team that kind of helps you edit and promote and publish your podcast, you're going to be a lot less stressed because you'll be able to focus on the fun part, the part that you love, the reason why you started the podcast in the first place. So you'll be able to segregate your role from other roles that are a little bit more challenging for you or boring for you or take too much time for you. If you hire that team a little bit early, it'll allow you to be a lot less stressed about your podcast. And that stress, as we talked about before, is one of the main reasons for Podfade in the first place. Number 2 is marketing. If you're marketing, you'll be able to grow your listener base and keep a listener base really, really high. So if you have a stronger listener base because you're marketing, then you're less likely to Podfade because you say, wow, I've got so many listeners. I want to support them. I want to be there for them. And also, there's a reason why I'm publishing this in the first place, because I actually have listeners. If you don't have listeners, it's going to be very challenging for you to keep up a podcast. So marketing and like having a marketing budget, getting set up where you're doing free marketing and paid marketing to whatever amount that you can afford, whatever amount that makes sense to you. That marketing is one of the key things. I recently was interviewing somebody on this podcast, and he was talking about how in the first 4 weeks he started marketing. He had some remarkable results where he started out with like 30 downloads per episode. He moved to like 50, and then he moved to 75 downloads per episode. And then he even got up to 150 downloads per episode. And the issue for him is that he stopped marketing. He stopped promoting. He stopped saying it on social media, etc. And what ended up happening is his listener base went even below the 30 where it started because he didn't keep up with it. So for you, you need to be marketing. And that's going to grow a listener base, and that's going to allow you to have the legacy that you want, make the money that you want, and make the impact on the world that you want by touching the lives of different people. So marketing, critically important. We've talked about that on a lot of other episodes. In fact, I think we talked about it on episode 32. But number one thing that you can do to make sure that you avoid Podfade is to monetize your podcast early. And if you want to know what to do to monetize, just go back. I think I'm trying to do this from memory, episode 5 in our 6-part course. Episode 5 talks about monetizing, all the different ways you can monetize. Episode 10, I believe it talks about the risks of not monetizing. And then episode 30 was a lot about monetizing and some other monetizing strategies. So if I can just do this from memory, episode 5, 10, and 30 are 3 episodes that you might want to listen to help you with this. But the number one thing that can help you avoid Podfade is to monetize as early as possible, to start making money through your podcast. To get more ideas on how to monetize, go to 5, 10, and 30. But suffice it to say, you need to monetize your show, and the earlier, the better. Because if you're making money with the podcast, it's going to feel better. It's going to be more rewarding for you. And it's going to be more feasible for you to continue working the podcast if you're making money through it. So number one, if you can monetize it, it will really, really, really help you. So also, if you haven't checked out episode 5 yet, the first 6 episodes of this podcast, it's a 101 course. It's a beginning course for podcasters. It's completely free. Like, you don't have to go to some website. You don't have to give me your email address or anything like that. It is a free course, and it's on this podcast. So it's simple for you to find. It's just the first 6 episodes. If you haven't listened to them yet, go back and check them out. It will support you to be able to get into the next level. So as far as today's conversation, as far as this podcast conversation, I want you to avoid Podfade. We talked a little bit about the 3 reasons that you would experience Podfade. We talked a little bit about what is Podfade, what are your chances, which obviously were high if you remember correctly. It's very probable to experience Podfade if you don't figure these things out. Talked about some of the risks, the 6 different things that could happen to you if you do have Podfade, the 3 reasons other podcasters Podfade, and we help to give you a plan with those 11 things on how to avoid it to make sure that your show survives. And I want to wish you absolutely the best of luck on this. I want you to use that plan. I'm on your side, and I want to see you succeed. And if you need any help at all with any of this, you can find me at growyourshow.com. Growyourshow.com, and click the button to schedule a free strategy session with me. And I also want to say, before we go, I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode, which is an interview episode. We go through somebody else's plan. We go through what they did right, what they did wrong. So you can really see that from their perspective. And I always interview somebody with a different walk of life, a different type of podcast, so you can see all of the ideas and tools. Additionally, episode 36 is that plan on what to do for your first 8 weeks. So I want to see you on episode 36 as well, coming up in just 2 episodes. And for now, I'll let you go. My friend, bye for now. This is serious. Don't go. Now that you've gotten whatever value that you feel that you got, the actionable takeaways, you need to implement the stuff that you learned. If you remember me talking about bird church once, and they learn how to fly, and then they walk home, I don't want you to walk home. I want you to fly home. So take the steps, take the actionable steps for your benefit so that you can become a better podcaster. That's the only thing that I ask of you. And I'll see you for more actionable tips on the very next episode.